If you like what you hear, let us know by becoming an official supporter of the Pop Culture Preservation Society on Patreon. This show is created, researched, produced, distributed, edited, and paid for by us, Kristen, Carolyn, and Michelle. And your support allows us to keep the lights on and keep on trucking. For the price of 1 or 2 cups of coffee a month, you can become a supporter by going to poppreservationists.com and clicking on the Patreon link. Or go to our link in bio on Instagram and find the Patreon link in our link tree. We appreciate you and thank you so much for helping us do what we love.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to one of our favorite episodes from 2021, which was all about Saturday morning cartoons. This was such a fun episode, and it was so fun to prep for, and I thought it was just such a fun conversation.
I cannot believe how much I loved watching cartoons to prep for this episode. It was strangely gratifying.
Yeah. It was
so much fun.
Yes, it was so great. And not just the cartoons, but recalling the actual Saturday morning experience from getting up out of bed and, going into the kitchen and so many
Before your
people,
parents are up.
Yes, before your parents are up.
The cereal.
Being the box already out on the counter. And in my case, the pre-poured milk in the refrigerator. And
Diva.
so many people had similar experiences. And then, there was little siblings getting them ready and sitting in front of the TV. And to know that at that moment on Saturday mornings in the 70s, so many of us were doing the same exact thing. Crazy.
I hadn't thought about that. We were all doing the same thing at the same time. Yes. Literally to the minute.
Yes.
So you, the three of us, I'm looking at you two right now. We were all sitting on the shack carpet in front of the TV simultaneously.
Right. Yes.
Having no idea how our worlds were going to collide one day.
I know.
What our future held.
I know. Well, we recently recorded an episode devoted to Happy Days, and Carolyn discovered a Happy Days cartoon that we'd all completely missed. It is so bizarre. Just wait till you hear about it. But it got me thinking. We all remember the Saturday morning staples like Looney Tunes and Super Friends, Speed Buggy, Scooby Doo, and all the wonderfully bizarre fever dream Krofft shows. But surely there were more that we either missed or have completely forgotten about, probably due to the effects of the bizarre fever dream Krofft shows. So I did a little digging. And this comes from GameRant.com. And John Charon recently had this to say. The cartoons of the 70s have often been overlooked, especially compared to the golden age of animation that was the 80s and 90s, perhaps due to their more rudimentary animation styles and lack of adult double entendres. 70s cartoons have remained forgotten in the past. However, there is something to be said about this period of animation, as it was immensely influential on subsequent cartoons. Nostalgia can be a large factor in appreciating these 70s cartoons, but there were a lot of genuinely interesting cartoons from the era, just maybe not the most advanced in terms of storytelling. Still, these cartoons have something special to offer curious audiences of the present day. I love that because it is true. The cartoons really couldn't hold up against a lot of the cartoons that our kids watched or that they put out today.
And they were psychedelic, so they wouldn't translate.
Well, right. And we can't forget that our cartoons were they paved the way for what
they really did.
What animators are able to do today. So here's a list that Game Rant put together of these obscure, probably forgotten cartoons. Tell me if you remember these. I Am the Greatest, The Adventures of Muhammad Ali.
No, I don't remember that.
This was on NBC in 1977 for only 13 episodes. And Game Rant says, the show revolved around the famed boxer and his niece and nephew going on adventures around the globe.
Niece and nephew? Why?
Yeah, I don't know. Notable for the fact Muhammad Ali actually voiced himself. The show was not much of a success, but still represents an iconic time for Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Because he was right up there with Dorothy Hamill.
Did she have a cartoon?
No, I mean in terms of her notoriety and her fame, right? We all knew who he was. We all knew who Dorothy Hamill was, right?
But what I think is interesting is this was sort of a trend, right, in the 70s, because we had like the Harlem Globetrotters had a cartoon taking some notable figures in the world of sports or entertainment and animating them. Okay, what about this one? It's called Groovy Ghoulies.
Oh, I do remember that one. That was a good show.
Well, okay, so this was on in 1970 and 71 on CBS, and then in the next season, it was just in syndicate. It was just in reruns on Sundays. So Groovy Ghoulies was a very odd cartoon in which classic horror movie monsters got together and lived in a giant haunted mansion, and they sang songs and played instruments. They got into all kinds of kooky predicaments, but they were like really fun and good natures. Like they were way more interested in playing their instruments than scaring people.
Oh, it wasn't scary at all. And the band, groovy. It was groovy. Yeah. I loved it.
I would have been all over this one. Like this was my kind of jam. And so I can't remember. Am I just wishing I watched it or did I watch it? But it sounds cute,
like
right?
It's that classic. Well, and you'll hear in the episode that I had a thing about any cartoon that had a band in it. And there would always be one person, I think in this one, it was Frankenstein, that would have a guitar, and they just would take their whole hand and you just strum down on the guitar with your whole hand, just repeatedly. Like there's no intricacy to the animation of how they play the guitar.
It's really cute. You can find clips of it if you just Google Groovy Ghoulies. A lot of video comes up. Okay, here's another one. Inch High Private Eye.
Wait, what is it?
Inch High Private Eye.
High. Is he a
inch
worm?
High,
yeah,
like measurement. Yep. So this was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon classic. It was only on from September to December of 1973.
Oh, wow.
And Game Rant says, Inch High Private Eye was a show that followed its title to a T. The premise was simple enough. Following the misadventures of an inch-tall private investigator who could use his diminutive. Thank you. Who could use his diminutive size to solve crimes and capers. And the character was actually based on Maxwell Smart.
A tiny Maxwell Smart.
It's basically.
There's a lot that was based on Maxwell Smart. He was a big inspiration.
This is another really cute one to watch clips of.
Mm-hmm. And you gotta ask why. Like, why did somebody go, what if he was tiny? I mean, what difference does it make?
Okay, so what about the Robonic Stooges?
Oh, I do remember that one,
You
too.
do?
Yeah, and I feel like it was on for like 12 days. And that was it.
It was, so the Robonic Stooges, I love this description. This cartoon is kind of out there, even for an old school cartoon. It's the Three Stooges mixed with superheroes. Certainly something no one could have seen coming, yet here we are.
Oh my God. So wait, I don't understand the word robonic.
Or robotic.
I know, well, here, I'll tell you. In this rendition, the Three Stooges are cyborg superheroes tasked with saving the city from foes and criminals, as well as their own bumbling. They're cyborg superheroes, but they're the Three Stooges.
Robotic.
No, it's robonic.
It is robonic?
It's robonic, yeah.
Was the bionic
That's a
man
made-up
out
word.
yet? Like, was
Robionic?
I don't know.
That's a good word. Robionic is a good word.
Yeah. I bet you it's a combination of bionic because they were like these superheroes and maybe, I don't know, robotic.
And robots.
Right? Yeah. No, I don't know. Okay, here's the last one. This one I love the title of. Help! Exclamation point. It's the Hair Bear Bunch.
Okay, I remember that title, but I don't remember the cartoon.
It's the Hair Bear Bunch. This is another
Hairy
cartoon.
Why help? They should have just said it's the Hair Bear Bunch.
Right.
Who are
no,
the Hair Bears?
Well, this is another cartoon from
The
Hanna-Barbera.
precursor to the Care Bears.
It's centered around three very stylish and coiffed bears.
Coiffed?
Why?
Who pull off zany and chaotic pranks at the zoo. I would have loved this one. Carolyn, I think you would have hated it.
Yeah. If they care about their hair and
They don't need the hair. They just do the pranks at the zoo.
No, you guys, you have to see these bears and their hair. And I'm going to post some photos from all of these cartoons in this week's Weekly Reader, but especially the Hair Bear Bunch because they have the funniest hair. So anyway, listeners, make sure you're subscribed to our Weekly Reader. You can do that via our website at poppreservationists.com. Or there's always a link, I don't know, somewhere, right?
We're everywhere.
Yeah. Help It's the Hair Bear Bunch was only on one season, CBS, September 71 through January 72, which that doesn't sound like a season. That sounds like 4 months. Well, we're happy to tell all of you that in this episode you're about to listen to, we cover all the standby favorites and give you a lot of fun information as well as share our own memories of those wonderful Saturday mornings from our childhoods.
And I think it's really important to point out to everybody here that this is a gift to Gen X because this is not a phenomenon that exists anymore. So please enjoy this encore episode of Saturday Morning Fever. So how old were you guys when you stopped watching cartoons on Saturday morning? When did your own Saturday morning ritual come to an end?
Like 49? I don't know, 50? No.
Hello world is a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot of loving is what we'll be bringing. We'll make you happy.
Welcome to the Pop Culture Preservation Society, the podcast for people born in the big wheel generation who saved their pennies in cardboard boxes for UNICEF, or little plastic churches for Sunday school, or taped onto order forms for the Columbia Record and Tape Club.
We believe our Gen X childhoods gave us unforgettable songs, stories, characters, and images. And if we don't talk about them, they'll disappear, like Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition.
And today, we will be saving the holy grail of appointment TV, Saturday morning cartoons.
I'm Carolyn.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Michelle. And we are your pop culture preservationists.
One of my very first memories is waking up in the dark, putting on my Holly Hobbie robe, going into my brother's room and getting him out of bed, and then taking him by the hand, which was so soft because it was still basically a baby hand, and walking him into the family room where we would sit and stare at the test pattern until...
In this world of fear, and bring the laws that they should fear, and fight through all who see or hear. The cry goes up both far and near for underdog.
You guys, I think Saturday mornings were my first taste of independence. I would wake up early, my parents still asleep. I'd head to the kitchen where my mom would have put out a couple of boxes of cereal and a plastic bowl on the counter the night before. And in the refrigerator, there would be a pre-poured cup of milk, just the right amount to dump into my cereal bowl. Because we had a milkman and the big glass, gallon jugs. I was not about to be able to pour that. And I guess she didn't want me to bother her in the morning. So that was all ready for me to go.
My God, what planet did you live on? That's amazing.
I'd make my cereal choice, probably Apple Jacks or Alphabets.
God, you're so lucky.
And I'd pour my milk into the bowl, and I'd head to the family room where I'd plop myself right in front of the TV. And you guys, Saturday mornings was one of the rare times where we were allowed to eat in the family room.
Oh.
So that feeling, coupled with the control of the television set, was priceless.
Also, I can see you trying to walk without sloshing the milk over your bowl, little like 5-6-year-old Carolyn. We ate cereal watching cartoons too, but dry right out of the box. My sister and I just sticking our hand right in the box.
Oh, I'm sure there were those days too, or when I was trying to get the prize at the bottom and, shaking it where all the boxes were like, I pushed them in on the side so I could try to shake it out.
See, I thought you weren't supposed to do that. I thought that was cheating. I thought you had to eat all of the cereal and you couldn't get to the prize until you had eaten all of it.
Yeah, we would dump it all out in a big mixing bowl, pluck the prize out, and then dump it back in.
No, that is cheating. You have to send your prize back to the company.
That's right.
That is not okay. That is not okay.
Cursed.
Okay, when I asked my husband what his Saturday morning cartoon habits were, he had the same exact memory as me, except he's the little brother in the scenario.
Aww.
And they would bring their sleeping bags downstairs and then watch the test pattern. You watch the test pattern like it's a show. You just sit there and stare at it waiting for underdog.
That's what I was going to tell you guys about my memory is that my sister and I, she's 3.5 years older than I am, and we would be the only ones awake, but bleary-eyed, but you had to get up. And I don't remember, maybe she woke me up or maybe I just, had an internal alarm clock on Saturday mornings that woke me up at, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, how did
Because
we know?
I love
really
to sleep and I'm a sleeper. Like
know?
even when I was little, my mom would say I would ask to go to bed at night and she'd have to wake me up in the morning because I'm a sleeper until I hit menopause. It was all over. But I just remember the box of cereal, and we would grab a bowl sometimes, but no milk. We would just, eat it with our hands, or we might pour it in a bowl, or animals. But we would get our sleeping bags, or we would build little forts, or we would have pillows. And even though we might have, a sofa or something to watch TV, we would lay on the floor and we would put our blankets out on the floor and just camp out. I mean, camp out all morning long.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And the parents probably loved it. Think about that.
Oh, I have no doubt.
They probably they were like, thank God for Saturday morning TV.
Well, when I was little, and as I was saying, having control of the TV, was just this great feeling because I could turn the channel. I think during the week when my parents were around, they were kind of in charge of the TV at other times, but I had the power of the control. And then once my sister was awake and around, then I also had control over her. It was like I was practically an adult, you guys,
You were
on
in
Saturday
charge.
mornings. I really was.
That's true. I think about that. I was in charge on Saturday mornings. I never wore my robe. Besides getting up on Saturday morning when I went in to get my brother, who, I mean, for all I know, he was in his crib and I was getting him out of his crib. That's seriously how little he was. And my parents were like, have a good time.
Really?
Kristen's babysitting. She's 4, but she's babysitting.
You were responsible.
Saturday mornings was much more than the cartoons and stuff for me. It was an experience. It was from that pouring the milk in that cereal bowl, carrying it out there, and plopping myself down. It was an experience.
And something we've talked about in the past that is so missing from today is we waited for Saturday morning.
I know.
You waited all week for Saturday morning.
You looked forward to it.
Yes. Our kids, they could watch their favorite cartoons on Disney Clubhouse or Nick Jr., whatever they watched on. They could watch those any day of the week.
This is the whatever you want, whenever you want, does not equal happiness scenario. The equation doesn't work.
It's the participation generation.
Right. Does it bring them any more happiness? I argue no. Okay, Mike is like, Mike, who's the one who says, I don't remember to every pop culture question I ask him, to every nostalgia question. I don't remember. He remembers when I asked him about cartoons. And so after he told me about coming down in his sleeping bags, later that day, he comes in from a bike ride and he's like sweaty and he's all breathless. And he's literally coming in the back door with his bike. And he's like, do you remember? Oh my, do you remember? Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Do you remember? And it was just like a one-off character. It was this little frog that was on Looney Tunes or something. And he's like doing a little, okay, that's a lie. He's not doing the vaudeville act. I'm doing the vaudeville act. He's doing, hello, my baby. And I'm like doing the little act that the frog does.
But you guys, that's what's so special about a lot of these memories that we have as Gen X kids. We all had this. We all shared this moment.
We were all sitting there.
Yes, exactly. And that's just priceless. And I do feel for my kids that I don't think they will have that, singular moment that they can bond with so many people about.
They won't, because they don't even watch the same shows.
And what they don't have that we have is they still have the shows that they collectively loved, but we all have the experience. We all had the experience.
Right.
And I would guess that most people listening also ate cereal out of a box, got their sleeping bags or got their favorite blankets, made little camps up on the floor where they stayed for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours with the brother, with the sister, while the parents were sleeping on their own. And that's what we have that they don't have anymore.
And it was a very bonding sibling experience, right? Yes. So you didn't have each of the siblings off watching each show that they wanted to, their own show. The siblings sat together for the 3, 4, 5 hours. Yeah. And you had to agree on if you were going to do CBS, ABC, or NBC.
It's terrible.
That's right. Most of us only had one TV in our homes.
Right.
This, it wasn't like,
of course,
you can't go in the other bedroom and watch TV.
You can't go to the other device. There were no devices. You just had the one TV. Mike is going to be the star of this show because he just he just was participating in a way that he doesn't participate in anything. So that night at dinner, after his breathless vaudevillian routine with the frog song, he cues up some classical overture on Spotify at dinner time and proceeds to narrate for me what Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd were doing during each segment of the music. Wow. Like he has it memorized.
Wow.
I know.
That's a party trick.
Isn't that crazy? Here, I thought he was like, And he listens to classical music, I thought. I thought he was like this oddball Gen X classical music fan. It turns out he's not. He's just a Bugs Bunny fan.
Right.
And that's how he knows all of this music.
Wow.
Well, we're going to have to get him to do that for us when we have dinner
I know.
next time.
He's like, this is when Elmer Fudd is running up and he comes back with a bigger gun. And then Bugs Bunny goes off and he comes back with a bigger gun. And then Elmer Fudd runs out. He knows all of it. It's crazy.
That's adorable.
And he made a very profound statement to me. He said, this was the baby Mozart of our generation.
Right.
Bugs Bunny was our baby Mozart.
Yeah. Oh, baby
exactly
Mozart.
right.
It's going to make me
Baby
cry.
Einstein, baby Mozart.
all
Remember
of
all
them.
those? I
Yes.
know. Carolyn, tell me how, so how did the concept of Saturday morning cartoons even begin? This wasn't always a thing.
No, this was not always a thing. Up until like 1960, the only way you could even see any kind of a color animated cartoon would have been in the movie theater. So it was not until the 60s that we even saw anything like this on our television sets. And it would be 1960 when the Flintstones debuted.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stone Age family.
That would be the first color animated series that was on TV. But it was a primetime show. So we've got the Flintstones until 66 when the Bugs Bunny hour took over.
In prime time or on Saturday morning?
This is still prime time.
So Bugs Bunny was on in prime time.
Yes, first.
That's crazy.
And so was the Jetsons and Woody Woodpecker. And those shows were all primetime shows. But then they realized the TV networks and the production companies, like, well, a lot of kids aren't seeing these shows. One, because some of them aren't even staying up as late as some of these shows are on. And two, again, there's only one television in the house. And sometimes the Flintstones was not going to be mom and dad's choice of what they wanted to watch at night. So instead, they started to think, how can we get younger eyes on our shows? And so they decided that rerunning these during a time when kids could watch would be a great idea. That logical time slot was Saturday mornings. Most kids were home Saturday mornings between 8 and 1. They were already getting up early. Their body clocks were used to getting up for school during the week. And Saturday mornings was kind of a dead zone in terms of network TV and what you put on during that time slot. So
and there was no soccer back then.
Correct. There wasn't anything else really competing for attention or time. And as we stated a little earlier, mom and dad maybe they could have partied a little hard on Friday night and they want to sleep in on Saturday. So it was kind of a win for them as well. So that's how those shows started. So the original Saturday morning shows were reruns of shows that had previously aired. But then some production companies thought, this is a great little time slot. I think it's time to maybe look at creating some original programming. And so this is when Sid and Marty Krofft are kind of getting their ideas going, and Hanna-Barbera. And the network saw this as a great way to target new shows and products to kids and maybe make a little moolah. Yes, cha-ching.
So essentially, it was an opportunity to market directly to children.
Yes, exactly.
And
it
worked.
was what had been this dead zone now is this potential gold mine. I mean, they are seeing this as dollars. The other great thing was cartoons were less expensive to produce than any kind of a live action show or even than a Howdy Doody or any of those shows. So the production expense was lower. They could repeat cartoons more often. And for whatever reason, kids didn't always think like, I already saw this one. Or if they did, they got
we did not care.
We loved it. I loved it when it was something familiar.
I mean, some cartoons have the shortest run. So many of them are produced for like 2 seasons and that's it. Like Hong Kong Phooey, I think, has 16 episodes total. But they reran them for 10 years. So just because something has debuted in 1970 and ran from 1970 to 1972 doesn't mean you didn't see it in 1976.
Exactly. So by the early 70s, kind of when we're, pouring the milk in our cereal or eating out of the box, these shows and the advertisers were hitting their stride. And when we think about it, and we think about these commercials that we consider classic when we chat about commercials, most of those ran during those Saturday morning hours.
Yeah.
Though all the cereal commercials.
That's why they're so memorable to us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of Captain Crunch. I mean, I could hear his voice.
Captain Crunch is a good part of any good breakfast.
I was watching some of those cereal commercials, and, the little leprechaun with Lucky Charms.
What about there's an adventure in every bowl of alphabets? It's all the taglines, too. Remember the honeycomb hideout?
God. And I took that so literally. I took all the commercials literally as if they were shows. And so I wanted my own honeycomb hideout.
Well, let me tell you guys, that was one of the issues that some watchdog organizations started to have, because as children, it was very hard for us to differentiate between content of the shows and the content of the commercials. We thought it was all content and that the honeycomb hideout was real, and that those characters, they not only marketed the cereal to us, but we wanted the stuffed Tony the Tiger you could send away for, or the Trix Bunny. It was just one constant loop of advertising.
One of my favorite commercials. Do you remember hanker for a hunk of cheese?
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that?
that was
And then he'd go,
time for timer.
he'd be like,
I hanker for a hunk of, a slabber, slice, and chunk of, a snicker is a winner, and yet won't spoil my dinner.
a hanker for a hunk of cheese. And they'd be like, just put your, he'd show you how to put the cheese on the cracker. And he had the little tiny skinny legs.
Yes.
And he'd be like, so when
What was he? He wasn't
Was
an
he a
animal.
cheese?
Was he
No.
or a lemon? He was like a lemon or something.
It
like a
looked
lemon
he
with
was
legs.
a piece of fruit.
He would be like, here's a healthy snack, boys and girls. My husband came in because I asked him if he remembered it. And he immediately said, I had to write it down as a slice of slab of slunka. And he immediately said, a slice of slab of slunka, a hanker for a hunk of cheese. That came out of, I was like, what part of that of your brain did that just fly from? He's like, I have no idea.
And there was something about making the little, you could make orange popsicles by putting orange juice in your ice cube trays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I swore that timer said, put it in your freezer for 10 minutes. And so we did it. We put it in our freezer, and you're supposed to put toothpicks in it. And after 10 minutes, it's just orange juice
With
sitting
the
in my
saran wrap
freezer.
over the top.
Yes, saran wrap over the top. Yeah.
So were these, Carolyn, the commercials like that? That was just very pointed, right? To kind of like a palate cleanser for the sugary cereals and the McDonald's and the toys.
Think that was something that the networks chose to do, but it was forced upon them because of these watchdog groups that pointed out the amount of sugary cereal commercials, also the amount of violence they felt it was in cartoons. You already talked about the gun sizes and all of that,
absolutely.
that they went to the government, and then so the FTC and the FCC put some regulations in. And our little friend with the healthy snacks was an outcome of that.
No way. They were required to do time for timer?
They were required to have X amount of those kind of ads, or not even ads because they weren't really
it's
ads.
interstitial material.
Is that why Schoolhouse Rock came to be?
Yes, thank you. Schoolhouse Rock
and in
was
the
an
news.
answer to that.
In the news.
And in the news.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the biggest bummer.
That's when you went to
in
the
the
bathroom.
news. I'd be like,
Right, you don't
let's go
care.
switch cereals.
Exactly. So those were all, because even when we did the Schoolhouse Rock episode.
Oh, yeah. Everybody should listen to that.
Yes. But
That was
I
a
was
fun
like
one.
thinking this was all out of the blue, and they were doing this very altruistically, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to teach multiplication tables with this fun, rhyme? And while I'm sure that was part of it, it was also, we got to figure out a way to get some education in here. Yeah.
You even see, starting in 1970, there is the Saturday morning lineup is scrubbed of superheroes because the parent groups were saying the superheroes were violent TV shows, which is hilarious. Again, when you think about Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd and all the anvils that were dropping on people's heads. But no, you can't have any superheroes. And I think that, this is my own opinion here, I think that's what gave birth to this very unique period of cartoons that we had in the 1970s, because it wasn't just comic books and superheroes that we had. It was crazy, actually. It's kind of cuckoo.
Yeah, no, it really was. And it's interesting, just if you look at the regulations that were put in during the 70s, and then when we had a different political administration come in the 80s, they removed all of those regulations. So all of a sudden then it was kind of a free for all again in the world of Saturday morning television. But at the same time too, we were kind of the sweet spot, the Gen X
we were
people that we were in terms of that Saturday morning time slot, because as we aged out of it, those kids coming in had more, as we said, demands on their time. There was now morning sports on Saturdays. There were other things to occupy your time. There were video games. There was cable TV.
And so is that what brought it to an end? Because it does not exist anymore. When did it stop existing? And was it that alone that brought it to an end? Or was it cable TV? What was its demise?
It was a combination. There was not one particular thing that brought it to an end, and it kind of evolved. So while we don't have maybe the Saturday morning, everybody at the same time sitting down, it was almost a little bit more for us as parents, I think, what's the word I want? A little more subconscious, because Disney Channel, no commercials or whatever. But my gosh, was Hannah Montana not licensed out the wazoo?
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
The marketers and TV programmers were finding a different way to kind of get to the same end.
They were doing it via a channel rather than a time slot.
Correct. And it was a little more free in the cable world as well. In terms
so the
of
regulation would not be the same.
Like that. So
there
was
that's
some
interesting.
freedom there.
Okay,
yes,
so how old were you guys when you stopped watching cartoons on Saturday morning? When did your own Saturday morning ritual come to an end?
Like 49? I don't know, 50? I don't know. I mean, maybe 11, 12? I don't know. I have no idea. I can't.
I didn't know either, and that's what. So I decided to look at the cartoon lineup to see if that could give me any clues. And the 1980 lineup did not look familiar to me at all. So that told me I was no longer watching Saturday morning cartoons in 1980. So that would make me 12, which is kind of what you were saying, Michelle. And also, this is very interesting because you sort of made, Carolyn, the delineating time period was the 80s, right? Now regulation was changing. In the 80s, the superheroes came back and there was a lot of emphasis on vintage cartoons again. We didn't have the like kooky live action pop music vibe that we grew up with in the 70s. It was back to Heckle and Jekyll, basically. The only contemporary show that was in the 1980 lineup was, what is it called? The Fonz Happy Days Gang. That was the only new show. That. I know. I wasn't watching anymore in 1980. So clearly, I think 12 was kind of it.
Yeah, I think middle school when we kind of went, right at 6th grade probably.
And that kind of, so is it... It's like our coming of age coincided with the demise of cartoons. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
In general. It wasn't just us. Yeah.
Yeah. That sweet spot, which is what makes, I think, our Instagram account and our engagement and all of that, because there is this select group, a finite group of people who had this experience, this shared experience, and it's fun to talk about it.
I feel like Shirley, though, don't call me Shirley. I feel like there's a good Gen X reference. I do feel like the Gen Xers who were born closer to 1980. So, I would be interested to hear from them because I do feel like there was still a Saturday morning experience in the mid 80s to late 80s. We're just not familiar with it.
But it's almost as if the content between 1970 and 1980 was very, very specific and singular.
I think so, yeah.
No matter what generation of people you're talking about, the content that was created between those years is the reason that we're talking about this today. It's really crazy. And there are really only a few makers of cartoons, animation studios that created the majority of the things that we were watching, which means much of what we were watching was related to something else that we were watching without us really knowing it. So, for instance, this is not a complete list of shows. It's just a smattering. Here are the studios that created animation. The first one is Filmation Studios. They created Tom and Jerry, the Archies, Mighty Mouse, and Fat Albert. And Fat Albert is kind of where you have to, this is where we get to separate the art from the artist. Because Fat Albert was a huge cultural and educational coup, really, when you think about it, right? And the artist, of course, is Bill Cosby. And it kind of feels yucky to celebrate him right now, but we can acknowledge what Fat Albert did. So it was one of the only shows that featured people of color. Fat Albert was honored for its educational content, which resulted in Mr. So-and-so, he who shall not be named, receiving an honorary doctorate in education. So when you watch The Cosby Show and you see created by Dr. William H. Cosby or whatever it is, he earned that doctorate because of Fat Albert.
Wow.
which was also, that show was also in response to some of those regulations. It's like, how can we have an animated series that also features some educational, moral, whatever, elements to it, so we can avoid, we can get it on the
They
air.
can get
That's
a check
good
mark.
show.
boxes.
Remember Mushmouth?
Mhm. I loved Mushmouth.
I know.
And that guy who spoke Ubby Dubby, I can't
yeah.
remember what his name was, but he did Ubby Dubby.
Yes, I can
and
picture it.
they talked about big stuff that I don't recall it being such a serious show, but
I
they
don't
talked
either.
about like vandalism and rape. I'm not kidding.
What?
Sexual abuse, kidnapping. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. But did you know, onto something that is much less important, that Kim Carnes of the Betty Davis Eyes, Kim Carnes, sang backup on the theme song for Fat Albert?
I did not know that.
I know. And the chorus of the theme song,
This is where the more you know thing gets shot across our podcast.
Yep, here goes the rainbow right here. And the chorus from the theme song was sampled for the 1998 hit Praise You by Fatboy Slim, which right now you're going, what?
Yeah, no.
But then you go, nah, 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 gonna have a good time. And then on the cartoon, they go, hey, hey, hey. Right? Now you have to go listen to the song.
We do.
Yes, I'm going to.
Okay. Hey, hey, hey. That's really good, Kristen.
Okay. Then there's most people know Hanna-Barbera Studios. Hanna-Barbera did Scooby Doo, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Quick Draw McGraw, Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear. I mean, pretty much everything that you know is Hanna-Barbera. Then there's the DePatie Frailing Studio. I have no idea if that's how you say that. I just know that that's how I've been saying it in my head since 1975. So there you go. And DePatie Frailing was the Pink Panther, Looney Tunes, and Merry Melodies. That's Bugs Bunny and the gang. And all sorts of one-off characters like, hello, my baby, hello, my darling, that one, right? Tons of those. And the Pink Panther, do you guys know how the Pink Panther came to be? The cartoon came to be? Okay, so the director of the movie The Pink Panther, starring Peter Sellers, there was a series of Pink Panther movies in the 60s and 70s starring Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau. So those Pink Panther movies were directed by Blake Edwards, who is coincidentally the husband of Julie Andrews. Correct. So Blake Edwards hired the DePatie Frailing Studio to create an animated opening sequence for the Pink Panther movies in which to show their credits. The opening credits of the Pink Panther was so popular that it got its own TV show.
Huh.
There wasn't even a panther in the movie. There's no panther. The Pink Panther is the name of a diamond that gets stolen. And then this little pink animated character that is in the opening credits gets its own TV show. Okay, then you have Sid and Marty Krofft. And we already talked about how in 1970, everything changed because they're like, no more superheroes. They're so violent. And so that opens the door for Sid and Marty Krofft, who make these giant puppets. And their first show is H.R. Pufnstuf in 1970, which was so scary.
It was.
Oh my God. It was just Witchy Poo was terrorizing.
Right.
Oh my God. And I also used to get H.R. Pufnstuf, the character, mixed up with Mayor McCheese.
They're very similar. I could see that. Well, no, but they have the same shape.
And they have the same shape head. Like it's a hamburger-shaped head.
There's a
and the big mouth.
there.
I know.
Yeah.
And a big mouth. Yeah. Okay, so H&R Pufnstuf was followed by Lidsville, the Bugaloos, Land of the Lost, and eventually the Krofft Supershow. Phil Collins, I just got to tell you, was actually in the running to be one of the guys in the Bugaloos. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally serious. He doesn't need Genesis. I've got this gig on this TV show. I'm going to be a Bugaloo. The Krofft Super Show was hosted by Dr. Cool and the Kongs, which was like this faux glam rock band, and they were later replaced by the Bay City Rollers. But the songs for Dr. Cool and the Kong were written by the Osmonds, then I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I loved Krofft Super Show. Okay, so the shows that were on the Krofft Super Show were Dr. Shrinker, Electro Woman and Dinah Girl, Wonder Bug, The Lost Saucer, which is the one with Jim Nabors and Ruth Buzzy and their pet Dorse, which is part dog, part horse, in which I'm pretty sure that Jim Nabors was just playing Gomer in a spacesuit.
Right.
It's just, he even goes, golly. Like he does this, it's the same shtick. And he even does the singing voice. Like, have you heard Jim Neighbors' singing
He's
voice?
like an opera
I
man.
saw Jim Neighbors.
Oh, that's right. It was her
at
first
the
concert.
Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. In concert. It was my very first concert.
You're talking to a Jim Neighbors expert.
And there's this contrast between Gomer and that singing voice, right?
It's like operatic, practically.
beautiful.
It's really deep.
Dream the impossible dream to find the unbeatable foe.
It is. I don't know. He sings like really classic songs, and yes,
It's really weird.
A bass voice.
Yeah. And he does that as a spaceman, too. And then Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was also on Krofft Supershow. Okay, then you have Total Television Animation Studio. They have Underdog, Tennessee Tuxedo, Klondike Cat. Does this mean anything to you guys? Savoir-faire is everywhere.
No, but it would to my husband. He is all over all those cartoons you
They're
just
just
mentioned.
staring at me like, no.
You guys, he is the biggest Underdog and Sweet Polly Purebred fan ever. He has little like figures in his office. He has I still have one of his old t-shirts. And there was nothing more disappointing to him, I'm sure, than when we first started dating and he was talking to me all about Underdog and I didn't watch it. So I was like familiar, but I was like, I couldn't really go there with him. I'm surprised we
poor
kept dating.
Brian. I had a friend in high school who looked just like Sweet Polly Purebred. And my brother says that when he's, I know, it's crazy.
Isn't she a dog?
Yes, she is a dog. My friend was not a dog. She was adorable. But she had the same color hair in the same exact
And a little shape.
Yeah. There was like a little hat on top and a little flip
Do you
underneath.
guys, I have a fun fact about Sweet Polly Purebred. Do you know who voiced Sweet Polly Purebred?
No.
Alison Arngrim's mother. Alison Arngrim is Nellie Olson, and her
Oh my
mother was
God.
a very famous voiceover actress, and she voiced Gumby, and she voiced Sweet Polly Purebred.
Nellie Olson's mom was Gumby?
Mom. And Gumby, yeah.
Oh, that is crazy. That's good stuff, Michelle. Sweet Polly Purebred was also my brother's first crush. He said his tummy felt a little funny when he looked at her.
I don't have authorization from my husband to share that he would agree and could relate to that. So let's just say he might have felt the same.
He might have gotten a funny feeling in his tummy.
Oh, he's going to kill me because that's probably not even true. But
Oh my God. Remember Simon Bar Sinister?
yes,
Yes.
Simon Barson, and he had like a gash on his head or something with stitches. It was scary. He was scary. Okay, then there was also J. Ward Productions. And picture all of these cartoons, and you'll be able to see in your head that they're all similar. Rocky and Bullwinkle, Fractured Fairy Tales. I loved Fractured Fairy Tales. Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and Dudley Do-Right. Did you guys gravitate towards one style of cartoon or the other?
I definitely did. Definitely.
You?
I was pretty much all vintage animation all the time. Like that was my favorite.
Awesome.
I loved all the the animal characters. I loved cartoons way more than I loved live action. And I don't actually have a very vivid memory of all those live action shows. Land of the Lost I do, but all the other Sid and Marty Krofft, I'm familiar with the titles, but I don't, because I think I was spending all my time watching animated. I was all about all the animal ones, the Hanna-Barberas, the Looney Tunes, way more than I was about people with kind of scary things happening where, there was a bad guy out to get you, or
There's always a robber.
Yeah. I liked Scooby Doo because it was funny and I loved the characters, but even that made me a little uncomfortable, because it was a little scary.
You're not alone. Yeah, I know people who were afraid of Scooby Doo.
But I definitely loved anything animal, like anything you just mentioned earlier, like all the shows.
Especially when they were really cute, like Droopy.
Well, I am going to flip that narrative totally and tell you that I disliked all of the things that you liked. I disliked any animal that
Like
was
chimps.
acting like a human.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a lot
shocking.
of cartoons.
That is shocking.
So you're consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I did have to pick any kind of animated cartoon, it would have been the Scooby Doos, where there are actual people. So I actually gravitated toward those live action programs because they could kind of maybe really happen. And I just thought they were clever and the plots were kind of fun. And I felt more grown up, I think, watching those. I might, in some level, might have said cartoons were for babies or something. But yeah, no. Because, they don't talk. Animals aren't supposed to talk. They're not supposed to have little hands.
I was with you. I loved the live action. I loved cartoons too, but I loved the live action. But more importantly than that, I think the pull for me, even more than the live action, was anything that had a band. You had to have a band or I wasn't tuning in. So I watched all the shows that had a band in them. Okay, I know this is hard. Choosing a favorite cartoon is like the ultimate Sophie's choice. But if you had to choose your number one favorite, like the one, not your number one favorite, that's wrong. The one that you really, really looked forward to when you were a kid, would you have one that stood out to you?
Well, I have one that checked so many boxes for me. And it wasn't actually on that long, but it was called Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
It has a great theme song, which, by the way, I happened to find a YouTube video of Cyndi Lauper singing that, dressed in one of the villainess costumes from Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, which I think was during a TV Land award ceremony with a tribute to the Kroffts.
Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, fighting all evil deeds. Each right for a magazine, hiding the life she leads.
In the back were Electra Women and Dyna Girls dancing all around. So yes, that has an excellent theme song. But I think it checked so many boxes for me for a variety of reasons. If you recall, I really loved when I would find someone I recognized from one show in another show. It was just like, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so. And in Electra Woman and Dyna Girl is played by an actress named Judy Sturgis, who was on a show called Room 222. Now, I don't know if either of you remember Room 222.
Sounds familiar.
Starring Karen Valentine. But my mom loved that show, and she would let me watch it.
It's a grown-up
with her.
show.
It was. It was about high school, and Judy was one of the students in it. But I got to watch it with my mom, and then all of a sudden, there's Judy on Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. She's Dyna Girl. That was so exciting to me. And then let's also say here we have two female superheroes.
Yeah, right.
So they were reporters by day, worked for a magazine, kind of a news magazine, and then could go into this thing and spin around. And then there they were, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. And they almost had like Apple Watch thingies. And so my sister and I had those little Kittle bracelets, and we would play Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, and we'd talk into it to our assistant, Frank, who worked in the Electra Cave, and he would keep us up to date on all the crime that was happening on the Crime Scope computer. And so I loved that females were kind of in this lead. I loved that it was the perfect age and stuff that I could be Electra Woman, my sister could be Dyna Girl. We kind of didn't fight. We could run around and play it after. So it had an extended life with us. It wasn't just that little time on Saturday mornings. And another little rabbit hole I went down, but their assistant, Frank, was an actor named Norman Alden. And when I looked up what Norman Alden was in, no wonder I loved the show, because Norman Alden, I think, was in every 70s show you could possibly imagine.
Like a guest actor?
Yes, a guest actor, and sometimes a repeated character. He was in My Three Sons, The Rookies, Alice, Dallas. I mean, you go down his IMDb thing, that guy was everywhere. So it was really fun. And that was my favorite.
Well, my favorite, I'm going to represent the OG cartoon. And at the risk of being way too unoriginal, I just have to say my go-to show was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show. And it had everything I wanted. It it was everything I needed in a Saturday morning show. It checked off all my boxes. It was funny. It was cute. It had just enough action and suspense for me because let's not forget who I was as a child. So this should really not be that surprising to you guys. That, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of mystery type shows or cartoons where there was a bad guy. So Bugs Bunny Roadrunner was like just my pace.
That is a recurring theme with
just
you.
my
You don't
pace.
like any sort of peril.
I don't like conflict.
Yeah.
No. I don't like conflict at all. Because like the bad guys in Bugs Bunny Roadrunner, they weren't the mad scientist who maybe were going to capture you or do something bad to you. It was more like a scheming Sylvester or like the harebrained tricks of Wile E. Coyote, which were funny. They weren't really things that were plausible. It wasn't something that I really had to worry about happening. I loved the opening theme. You guys remember the characters after Bugs and Daffy would do their little na 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 on with the show, this is it.
On with the show, this is it.
All the characters come prancing out like in a chorus line across the stage. I love that. I still love to watch that. I love watching that. And you'd call out and you'd watch them as if they were characters coming out on stage in front of you. It was so exciting. And I loved like the short format of all the cartoons, because they were just kind of enough, and then it would go into the next one.
Did you have a favorite, like in that chorus line?
Yeah.
That's where all the one-off characters are. The little frog that sings "Hello, My Baby." Did you have a favorite one-off character?
My two favorites, Sylvester, Tweety, and Granny, were
of course. Oh, I like
one
Granny.
of them. So funny to me. But also just enough, like that kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety too. Like, even though Sylvester's never going to catch Tweety, and Tweety was so smart, right? Same with Coyote and Roadrunner. It made me laugh, but it wasn't, it didn't give me so much, anxiety to push me over the edge. So I'm going to give you guys a list and tell me if you liked them. I mean, Carolyn,
I think I like the one-off characters
them
better than Bugs and the rest of the game.
Well, it was Bugs Bunny and then Daffy Duck. And then Porky Pig.
I did like Porky Pig.
Elmer Fudd. Yosemite Sam, who I did not like.
I didn't like him either. He annoyed me.
Yeah,
he was just an angry little man.
Sylvester and Tweety and Granny. Loved them. And Granny was always just tottering around with her little Tweety cage.
Very unwitting.
And she loves Sylvester so much. She has no idea what Sylvester's
trying
up
to kill her Tweety bird.
Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. That was just so funny to me.
Carolyn's like, I'm out.
I'm sorry. The dynamite, they're always like,
so much dynamite.
TNT.
So much dynamite.
So much dynamite.
I know. There was Foghorn Leghorn, not my favorite. I didn't like the way Foghorn Leghorn. But he's a big chicken, Carolyn.
Yeah,
the big chicken. He's a big rooster. There was Pepe Le Pew. That was really cute little stuff.
Yeah, who's now been canceled.
Yeah, he's been canceled.
But you know what? I watched Pepe Le Pew and I'm like, I think he should be canceled.
Well, and Speedy Gonzales, that's not
that's not okay
today.
Yeah.
No.
That's not okay.
At the time though, let's all remember at the time we watched these things and it was okay. Now, thank goodness we can all recognize that is not okay.
Okay, happier topic is Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Now Sigmund the Sea Monster and Johnny and Scott are friends, the finest friends that ever could be on the land of Orion.
Which was my favorite. I loved that little sea monster. I loved him so much. I loved the way they held his little tentacle when they walked down the street with him.
Aww.
And how he fell down all the time because all his tentacles would get in the way. And whenever he fell down, the tentacles would just be flying everywhere. I loved it so much. He fell down a lot. So Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was on the Krofft Supershow from 1975 to 1977. But of course, the repeats go on forever. And it's about two brothers, Johnny Whitaker, who played Jody in Family Fair as one of the brothers. And then there's another one.
And the Littlest Angel.
And the Littlest Angel, correct. Yes, he was like in all the Disney movies and lots of Hallmark made-for-TV movies. And then the other brother, I don't know who it is, it just looks like the kid, looks like Oliver from the Brady Bunch. That was like a type in the 70s, the Oliver kid. And so they go to the beach and they find this little baby sea monster at the beach, and his sea monster family has kicked him out of their cave because he's not scary. And this is this recurring theme during the 70s of people being without parents or even being rejected by parents as if this is just no big thing, right? His parents don't want him anymore. No big, ugh. So Johnny/Jody is like, well, hey, do you want to come live with me and my housekeeper? No parents.
No parents.
Just live with my housekeeper, but you can come live with us. And so Simeon goes to live with them, and he lives in their clubhouse. Didn't you guys want a clubhouse?
Yes.
I want a clubhouse so badly. And from watching TV, you would think that everybody had a clubhouse. And you're like, God, I can't believe I don't have a clubhouse. Oh, I wanted it so bad. So the plots are really kind of something you'd make up with your friends in the backyard. It's possible it was completely improvised. They're not super titillating. And some of the puppets, I mean, the Krofft brothers, they did amazing work, but sometimes it just looks like stuff you got out of the costume closet in your high school drama department.
It's like Scotch tape and construction paper.
But we did not care. We loved it. We loved it. And there, of course, a band, which is
right.
I will only watch shows with a band in it. So Johnny Whitaker / Jody will just break into song, you know, whenever they need to. And he's not a good singer, but he is a good lip syncer. He's a really good lip syncer. He can really sing with feeling, and he looks into the camera, and you really believe everything that he says. And it sounds like he's being backed up by a full band, but it looks like it's just his brother strumming a guitar. And honestly, I don't think the guitar even had strings on it. Like he's just like air strumming this pretend guitar. But the songs are good. They're really good. There's lots of oohs and ahs and bop-bahs and harmonizing and stuff like that. And the reason the songs are so good is because the people who did the music for Sigmund and the Sea Monster are the same people who did the music for the Monkees and the Partridge Family. Oh my God, no wonder I'm sitting there every Saturday watching Sigmund and the Sea Monster. And Sigmund's family of origin is sort of like a cross between the Beverly Hillbillies and the Sopranos. So Sweet Mama Ooze, they actually modeled her character after Phyllis Diller. And they even give her all of these tentacles on her head sticking up so she has the crazy hair. And then Big Daddy Ooze, the dad, is modeled after Archie Bunker. Mm. And then the brothers, Slurp and Glurp, they're modeled after Gomer Pyle.
You go, Jim Neighbors.
I know, right? Oh my God.
Now Sigmund, the sea monster, and Johnny and Scott are friends. The finest of friends that ever could be on the land or on the sea.
I can't even begin to tell you how fun this episode was for me to get ready for you guys. If I could devote my entire career to researching Saturday morning cartoons from the 1970s, I would do it. It turns out it's a really good hobby, and it might give me something to talk about. And I didn't realize, I had no idea what an impact this still has on me, how fun it is to still watch these shows, so much so that I'll sit and watch all the commercials too. So if you need a nostalgia cure right now, this is your medicine. Make a list of those cartoons you loved when you were a kid, look them up on YouTube, then put on your jammies, grab a bowl of cereal and park yourself in front of the boob tube, invite some friends over. It would be such a groovy party, except if it were my house, all you'd be able to have is like Golden Grahams. And that's it.
Golden Grahams are one of the best cereals ever. And they're full of sugar.
It's full of sugar, but my mom thinks it's not a sugared cereal, so you can have Golden Grahams. It
I
doesn't have a character on the front, so it must be
boxes of
healthy.
Golden Grahams to this day.
So funny.
Yeah.
It's the best
What
dry
could be
cereal.
BYOC? Bring your own
Bring
cereal.
your own cereal.
Okay.
Golden Grahams, Corn Bran, and if you were lucky, you got Cinnamon Life. Thank you for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and go get your nostalgia on.
And join us next time when we'll be counting down the best TV theme songs of the Gen X latchkey era. Hint, hint, that includes After School Time, because no one watched more after-school reruns than we Gen Xers.
The theme songs, those are often the best part of the
Or the commercials.
Yeah, exactly. And if you like our conversations, tell us, tell a friend, and most importantly, tell whatever platform you listen on by leaving a review and subscribing. Honestly, I know we say it over and over, but it's the only way we'll continue to get heard. And follow on social media. We have so much fun pretty much everywhere on social media.
Yes.
Just search Pop Culture Preservation Society.
In the meantime, let's raise our glasses for a toast, courtesy of our favorite Santa Monica roommates, Jack Tripper, Janet Wood, and Chrissy Snow. To good times.
To happy days.
To Little House on the Prairie.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's all, folks.
information, opinions, and comments expressed on the Pop Culture Preservation Society podcast belong solely to me, the Crushologist, and Carolyn and Hello Newman, and are in no way representative of our employers or affiliates. And though we truly believe we are always right, I guess there's always a first time. The PCPS is written, produced, and recorded at Modern Well, a woman-centered co-working space in Minneapolis, Minnesota, home of the fictional WJM Studios and our beloved Mary Richards. Nanu Nanu, keep on truckin', and may the force be with you.
Together, we get a happy feeling when we're singing a song.